Spider-Man, the Sinister Six is a video game developed by Brooklyn Multimedia and published by owners Byron Priest Multimedia exclusively for PC in 1996.
The retro game enthusiasts of you out there may be thinking this is simply a port of Spider-Man Return of the Sinister Six, which previously released on the NES, Master System, and Game Gear.
Heck, that's what we thought as well.
Oh, but more wrong we couldn't be. Not only are there several Spider-Man games that use the Sinister Six moniker, but not one of these games are actually connected to another.
Spider-Man Return of the Sinister Six and Spider-Man 2, The Sinister Six are action platformers. They recreate the feeling of being the famous web slinger the best they can. You can crawl on walls and shoot spider webs. Perfection! At least in spirit.
This PC game, though, woo! It's something totally different. Why? Well, this officially licensed Spider-Man game is produced by a company with, how can we put this, a unique software track record.
1994 Seinfeld screensaver and planner for Windows 3.1. 1995 Baywatch companion with screensaver for Windows 95.
These, don't really sound like, video games.
That's cause they're not. What they were, though, was a company expanding into the ever-evolving CD-ROM market. You see, Byron Priest Multimedia was a company experimenting with different forms of entertainment, and they decided to create a division to jump headfirst into the video game development marketplace.
Each one of their titles attempted to utilize the burgeoning CD-ROM format to create high-quality images, amazing soundscapes, and of course, state-of-the-art full-motion video. It's the wave of the future!
I'm taking out the clock!
Well, what did the developers achieve with their high-tech attempt at gamifying everyone's favorite wall crawler? Let's swing right into web-slinging action with Spider-Man the Sinister Six.
First, let's go ahead and have a look at the game's intro video.
This is funny. Can we hear that music again?
Yes, the only lyric is Spider-Man. Apparently the lyricist was paid by the word. But why does the song even sound like this?
I think it's supposed to be a ripoff of the 1994 animated series theme song where they kinda do the same thing.
Gotta love when a developer can lock down the rights to an iconic superhero, but not the rights to the theme song of their animated show.
Oh, they must have saved their budget for all these here graphics.
Right on! But we digress. Let's start up the game.
Good gosh, a ticking time bomb!
Oh no! Is the dev team trying to send us a message?
We see Mary Jane slowly prod the bomb. Look at that intensity. She's clearly very emotional about her impending doom. Flabbergasted.
Cut to Spider-Man swinging through the rooftops on his way to help.
The bomb's about to blow!
Spidey's not gonna make it!
Cut! Cut! Cut, Mary Jane! Come on, no way! Not enough suspense!
Oh ho ho! It was just the set of a movie the whole time. Ha! You really had us there, MJ, with your acting.
Yes, Mary Jane is an actress here. The film that's being shot is her big break, as revealed by a loud, exposition-whispering Peter Parker.
I was kind of late. Sorry. I only saw a few seconds of it, but you were great, MJ. You wanted to be in movies your whole life, and now you've got your big break. Don't let some Hollywood jerk rain on your parade.
And then we get control of Peter as he stands motionless in the center of a room.
Now that's a Spider-Man game! This here is, about 50% of the gameplay you'll find in this game.
Who needs hours of non-stop thrills and action when you can click around a room aimlessly and speak at people until you, well, no longer need to speak at people?
Mind your own business. I'm an award-winning director. Don't insult me by asking me to recite my long and extensive resume.
Scenes like this feature very little animation. They barely even bothered to animate the director's upper lip.
Are you threatening me? You know you're trespassing, pal. I could have you arrested.
Graphically, this game is a weird mix. Backgrounds are made up of pre-rendered CG images made to look kind of cartoony, and the characters are drawn in an oddly plain style that screams rushed.
Details are missing from one character to the next. Look, Peter's got a shadow, MJ doesn't. His clothes are basically one flat color, while everyone else has incorporated shadows to show detail. There's no consistency.
We kept clicking around and eventually found out.
Look here, I don't know who you think you are, but don't treat my wife like she's your doormat, capiche?
Yup, Peter here is married to MJ.
Now, this might seem unimportant, but actually, it's pretty significant.
Like we said before, this game was released in 1996. As evidenced by the game's beautiful knockoff theme, it was clearly aiming to engage the audience for the Spider-Man animated series that was broadcasting at the same time.
But anyone playing this game and following the cartoon in '96 would have likely been really confused, because Peter Parker and Mary Jane weren't married in that series until the final season.
Yeah, they were married in the comics. So who is this game supposed to appeal to exactly? Fans of the comics or the 1994 animated series?
I think it all boils down to the production wanting to cash in on the animated show, but not being able to do so.
So we get comic book Spider-Man instead. Cool! This would explain why we don't get the web-slinger's voice actor from the 1994 cartoon. Instead, we get
You were great, MJ.
Peter Whispers Parker over here.
To the roof, people! Time is money!
Chip Alvarez, this director guy, I'm really starting to hate him.
Time is money!
He yells more than I do!
We jump to the rooftop set and...
Wow, someone missed their high school art class on perspective.
Are Peter and Mary Jane flat paintings on the roof, or like a bearskin rug or something? Why doesn't anyone else look like Judge Doom at the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I have no idea. Shadows probably would have helped. I'm amazed at the whole assortment of awkwardly posed, low-detail characters here. They feel completely out of place against the highly detailed pre-rendered background.
Once again, you need to click on people and talk to forward the story. Riveting.
This time, though, the characters are so far away that the creators decided they could take an early lunch and not bother with the whole animating mouths thing.
I am a professional! It's not your wifey on the line, now go away!
Loving this so far!
There is so much useless and pointless dialogue here that it's kind of impressive that anyone could write so much about nothing that's going on that's important to anybody.
First rule of making an action-packed superhero video game includes static images with drawn-out, completely disposable dialogue.
Maybe you remember me going over Niagara Falls and Honeymoon Homicide.
I remember that scene. Wow, nice splash.
Thanks.
Now that's a Spider-Man game!
Oh, do you hear that? Plot progression!
Either there's a donut sale somewhere or there's big trouble.
Ha! Oh, classic burn, Spidey. Seriously though, someone might be dead.
But before Peter can verbally assault anyone else,
Action!
My spider sense is tingling. Why? Should I follow the police or stay here in case something bad happens on the movie set?
Whoa, okay. First off, what's happening right now is a story divergence moment.
yup, you can select one of two options and get a completely different result, leading to different scenarios. The game uses them a bunch.
Once you select one, you can't go back and make another choice. Players are likely going to sit on this screen a little longer than usual to really think about their choice.
Which leads us to our next thought. Why pause on this frame?
Peter Parker, as played by a middle-aged dad about to sneeze.
I didn't think it was possible to look surprised, bored, and like a schlubby Tom Hanks all at the same time. But hey, all right. Clearly they didn't render Peter very, flatteringly here. But we need to make a choice. Let's follow the police.
Those police cars stopped here.
What?
Can we see that again?
Wait, wasn't Peter just on a rooftop surrounded by an enormous film crew?
Yes, and immediately midair, he was dressed as Spider-Man.
When did he change?
Eventually, Spider-Man catches up with those police from earlier.
Whoa! Sorry to keep nitpicking here, really, but look at this scene.
Okay, we've got badly rendered police cars with solid plates for hubcaps, no taillights or detail anywhere near the trunk, ultra plain 3D rendering of the front of the bank with crudely drawn police officers dotting the scene.
Why do the police look wet? Look at the two on the right. Whatever's going on in the bank, it's got them on edge.
Is that pee-pee? Yeah, okay, pause. Something is really, really wrong here. You might be thinking we're being overly critical on the visuals or overall style of this game so far, but no, we're not. Not for a game released in '96 with the Spider-Man property attached.
Spider-Man had a ton of games released by this time on multiple platforms, including the 1995 Spider-Man animated series game released on the Super Nintendo that, believe it or not, somehow found a way to replicate the TV show's theme on a cartridge that would have struggled to fit a single modern-day MP3.
You could find games that were being released on less powerful hardware that were at least attempting to pull off more cohesive visuals. Heck, the same year this PC game was released, Spider-Man Web of Fire came out for the Sega 32X and featured better pre-rendered assets. It's baffling that this game exists looking the way it does.
And don't even get us started on comparing it to other point-and-click games. We can go back years and show off tons of examples of games that made way better use of the CD-ROM format. Not just featuring better animation and graphics, but better audio, gameplay, and, well, just about everything.
Let's face it, the overall quality of Spider-Man vs. the Sinister Six is about on par with something like the atrocious Zelda CDI games. And even those monstrosities were released years before this.
Squadala, we are off!
All that out of the way, let's see what else this adventure has in store for us.
After Peter talks to the police, he finds out that they're dealing with one of Spider-Man's classic foes, the Shocker. He's currently trying to rob the bank and has taken hostages.
Eventually, the Shocker calls the captain on his cell phone, who puts him on speaker so that Spidey can join the conversation.
Well, I hope you're prepared for a shock, old buddy, because guess what? You'll never get away with this.
Today is my lucky day. I strike it rich and I get to watch you die, Spider-Man.
I'm shocked by your threat, but I beg to differ.
Spider-Man walks to the back of the bank and finds a door that has some strange barrier over it. A little further, and he finds a trash receptacle holding the device responsible. When Spidey gets closer to deactivate it,
he finds one of the most deviously designed evildoer challenges of all time.
Upper cross puzzle. Difficulty. Happy Yoshi face. Oh, nice. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted from a Spider-Man game. Number puzzles in a dumpster.
Folks, it looks like we've got work to do.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, ready for crossing a garbage can. This is hard to complete. Rats are nibbling at his feet. It smells. Please help the Spider-Man.
Seriously, can you help him? After we finally complete the puzzle, we get a pretty confusing sequence. Just have a look for yourself.
Time to cash Shocker's check. Hey, what the? I'm in front of the bank. How did I get here?
Great working with you, wall crawler. Thanks to you, I'm an instant millionaire.
He got away. You let Shocker escape with the cash.
How was Spider-Man warped to the front of the building? How did Shocker still get away? We crossed for you, game. We crossed.
This made us think that maybe we chose the wrong option back on the Rooftop movie set, so we decided to load a save and try again.
Okay, let's choose to stay on the roof this time.
So if Peter doesn't jump off the roof, we see an action scene from the movie Go Wrong, where a stuntman is about to fall to his death.
Time for a little friendly neighborhood rescue.
Spidey attempts to save the stuntman, but he fails. Luckily, the film crew secures a safety net just in time.
It's revealed that the villain Mysterio was behind the accident.
Time for a boss fight. How does the quick and nimble wall crawler do battle with Mysterio, the manipulative master of illusion?
By popping purple balls.
Anticlimactic.
Yes.
Eventually, Mysterio vanishes into farts, and Spider-Man decides to head back to his apartment. There, MJ and Peter watch the news. Turns out, the director, Chip Alvarez from the film set, is being interviewed.
This so-called hero, Spider-Man, trespassed on my set. The disturbance nearly caused a member of my crew to plunge to his death.
What? People were there on set. Clearly, Mysterio is a known villain at this point.
You're telling me people saw Spider-Man and Mysterio duking it out on the rooftop and were like,
"Gosh dang it, the Spider-Man is evil. He's popping Mysterio's happy bubbles."
Peter, clearly upset and probably just as confused as we are, changes the channel.
The Shocker has struck in Midtown Manhattan. The New York Central Bank headquarters was just robbed by the notorious supervillain.
Oh, so that shocker sequence we completed and somehow failed before we were loaded to the roof took place again even though we didn't play that option? Great to know that no matter which option you choose and successfully complete, the villains kind of just giggle and trot away.
Maybe it's because we're playing on hard mode. You see, when we first started the game, we were given the option to set the combat sequences, like the Mysterio battle, to easy or hard. Puzzles, like Trash Pacross, have the same option, kind of a mix and match approach to difficulty.
Depending on the difficulty you select for combat, attacks do more or less damage, which is pretty run-of-the-mill.
But puzzles? From hard to easy mode, things are very different.
You'd think they just make an easy mode puzzle a little simpler to solve by pre-solving some of the puzzle or giving you more information, but no. Here's that back alley Pacross section again. Spider-Man still finds the strange puzzle box. However, instead of dealing with a more simplified version of the puzzle, he straight up annihilates everything with a massive wrecking ball.
Puzzle solved, bitch!
I wish we could do this in every video game. Would have made Myst a lot better.
Really though, that's not an easy puzzle. That's obliterating your problems.
We get that maybe some of you might not want to do a Pacross puzzle because you might be afraid that you wouldn't be able to complete it, but on hard mode, there's a hint system at the top left, and the third hint is always the answer no matter what puzzle they throw at you. Why not just remove those hints and only put them on the easy mode?
What's great is that in easy mode, they still offer you hints. Look, you're given a dumpster, and you're given a freaking wrecking ball. They think you might still get stumped?
Anyway, regardless of what path or difficulty you choose, the story still flows the same way.
That is to say, whether you play Stinky Pacross by the bank or decide to handle Mysterio's aggressive purple balls, you'll end up at the exact same place in the next part of the story. Your decisions don't really matter all that much for most of the game.
Next up, Peter is hanging out on the film set again. Today, they're shooting an action scene with a bus.
The quality of these visuals, they're just... The buildings, the bus, Peter's solid back where they forgot to draw the lines indicating he has freaking arms.
What I love about this scene is that MJ is shooting something that takes place inside the bus. So Peter is talking to her from the outside.
You're not going to be in any danger in this scene, are you?
I may get a bruise or two, but we've rehearsed it at least a dozen times. I'll be okay.
Well, I'll be right here to make sure of that.
Why would you have the character that's speaking facing the bus? Why did they not at least draw MJ through the glass panels of the bus door here?
Well, you see, Shane, as the animator of such memorable Rerez sequences as Spider with Maracas, Aquaman armpit fish shave, and copied and pasted Money Ghost from earlier in this episode,
Is that pee-pee?
I can say without a doubt that this is some lazy bullshit.
So you listen to dialogue and just stare at Peter wearing a stupid armless jacket, because if they're not gonna draw two lines to indicate that Peter has arms, you better believe they're not gonna animate more lip sync than they need to.
Suddenly, Vulture shows up with a fake Spider-Man. He announces that he's put a bomb on the bus, and fake Spider-Man has sealed off the door with his knockoff webbing.
Explosives are rigged to the bottom of that bus. When the gas tank falls below a quarter of a tank, an electric charge will trigger a detonator wired to the bus's ignition.
Everyone runs away, leaving Peter alone to save MJ and the rest of the crew inside.
In easy mode, Peter just needs to stop the bus from running. So you just put sugar in the gas tank or take a rag and stick it in the exhaust pipe. Personally, I wish they brought back the wrecking ball. But okay.
In hard mode, Peter has no choice but to get the people out of the bus. So he, a scientist, needs to look up a special effects master's guide on a nearby table and find some way to blend a bunch of ingredients together to dissolve the webbing.
Okay, just a few minor problems. 1. Peter should already know the best combination of ingredients to dissolve the webbing because he invented the webbing. Why does he need to look at a guide? 2. Maybe fake Spider-Man is not using the same webbing Peter invented, which means it's probably not that strong to begin with. 3. This is a 1996 New York City bus. These buses have an emergency escape hatch on the roof for situations in which passengers don't have access to doors. So no, Peter doesn't need to worry about dissolving anything. 4. Let's say Peter knows less about New York's transit system than we do, which couldn't possibly be true, but it wouldn't take a scientist or superhero to know that the windows on the bus are usually paired with a safety latch to open in cases of emergencies.
Peter really doesn't seem to be capable of thinking on his feet here.
So of course, Peter saves the day with overly complicated solutions.
But oh no! Because of this whole mock Spider-Man situation, everyone around seems to think Spidey's a bad guy.
Spider-Man broke onto my set and nearly killed members of my cast and crew. I want his webbed head on a platter!
Peter is pretty angry, we think. I'm usually pretty good at reading emotions, but I've got nothing here.
We got another divergence path with two options. 1. Track down and capture Vulture, the man who just tried to kill his wife and several others, thus bagging a violent and dangerous criminal and reasserting Spider-Man's good standing in the community. Or 2. Break and enter into the film studio's office to learn more about the director because reasons.
Huh. Well, there's no way that second option could be real, right?
You'd think not, but if you choose that option, he totally trespasses on private property and breaks in by disabling the security system. Spider-Man! Disappointed he's seen as a criminal.
That guy's a lunatic. Did you see that? He really wants to do me in and he's never even met me. I mean...
Goes and commits crimes.
Hey, it's Spider-Man. He's robbing the place. Sound the alarm.
Oh, great.
Now that's a
menace to society.
Here, Spider-Man is attempting to access the director's file cabinet to get some information. On hard mode, this puzzle requires you to decipher the proper code to enter. On easy mode, here's how you solve the puzzle.
You glance at the director's desk. Oh, hey, look, a single piece of paper with the code on it, and nothing else.
How? How do you even think this qualifies as a puzzle? They didn't even try at all. And wait, what? A hint system for this?
There was literally nothing else in the room to click on. There's just the code. How stupid do they think we are?
Even if you choose not to break the law, none of the options you pick ever seem to make a difference. Spider-Man keeps finding himself in positions where he's made to look like the bad guy.
Okay, but let's say you go the route of chasing down Vulture to clear your name. Well, here's where things get repetitive.
The combat in this game mainly consists of aiming and shooting at things, like what we saw in the Mysterio fight earlier. Pretty easy to deal with.
But the other scenes where Spider-Man isn't slinging his webs, a poorly designed and quickly animated Spider-Man jumps onto one of 4 sides of the screen while an enemy either throws things or shoots at him.
This gameplay is so bad. Spider-Man's controls are more like suggestions as to where he should go. You'd think they use keyboard inputs, but no, that would have been smart.
Instead, you'll need to blindly shuffle your mouse around, not knowing where the cursor is. Spider-Man will usually not follow simple swipes of the mouse in a specific direction, so you'll be forced to repeat the action several times, furiously trying to avoid enemy projectiles.
As if the controls weren't already annoying enough, he moves slowly, making it insanely easy to get hit. Spider-Man also has use of his Spidey sense to know where not to go, but it's poorly implemented.
You're better off closing your eyes and swinging your mouse around randomly. Eventually, by pure luck, hopefully, possibly, maybe, you'll actually pass.
After all of that, no matter what option you choose again, seemingly everyone gets away and no important information is gleaned. We go to Peter and MJ sitting on that stupid couch again, and Peter having to pick where to go next.
They use the exact same animation and facial expression they did last time for the next Choose Your Path scene. I mean, come on, at least draw a slightly different expression. Oh, here. I did this in like 3 minutes.
All right, let's say you choose to go to the TV station. Peter Parker just finds Hobgoblin terrorizing the studio and scaring a guy running for mayor. As you might have guessed, Spider-Man gets set up again. Bad combat, bad dialogue.
My real opponent is not the mayor. My real opponent is Spider-Man, for he represents what is wrong with New York.
Don't pick this option.
You might be worried about letting Hobgoblin go free to wreak havoc at this TV station if you don't go, but don't. You'll hear about Daredevil taking care of Mr. Goblin if you don't choose that option.
In fact, it's possible to play this game in a specific way that will lead the gamer to never see Hobgoblin at all, meaning that you wouldn't actually cross paths with the entire Sinister Six roster for this game about the Sinister Six.
And as for Hobgoblin, it's over. He gets arrested. The infamous Goblin won't show up after this point point regardless of how you progress.
Seems like we've been robbed of that ultimate action-packed fight scene where Spider-Man takes on all the Sinister Six at once. How sad.
So, Goblin is a bust. Let's go back and pick the option to go to the wrap party for the movie that was being shot. Because, yes, somehow production still continued with supervillains attacking everyone and almost killing one of the main stars.
We join Peter as he's standing motionless in the center of a party. Typical.
Surrounded by random people, you basically just click on whoever and listen to more inane dialogue.
Best part is that this is the only section of the game where another superhero makes a cameo. The Falcon.
Yep, he's this guy right here, giving off crazy obvious hints to who he is.
You've met Spider-Man?
I fly with some pretty strange birds now and then.
You seem familiar. Have we met before?
I don't think so. And I've got a good eye for faces. My wife says I've got eyes like a falcon.
Falcon?
After talking to enough people, a waiter walks up to Peter.
I was instructed by one of the guests to deliver this note to you.
Which guest gave it to you?
I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see the gentleman now. Perhaps he left.
An encrypted note.
Yes. Someone sent Peter a coded message. Let's help him out and figure out what it says.
Spider-Man has to do a puzzle again. Word riddles aren't his thing. What goes where? Just guessing. Watch out. Words confuse Spider-Man.
So none of these actually worked.
Let's use the hint system to see what the answer is.
The note says, find Smedical or your wife dies.
Okay. I understood everything in that sentence besides whoever's name that was.
Find Smedical or your wife dies.
It took us a half an hour to figure out how to spell this guy's name.
It's pronounced different than it's spelled.
Smedical.
Schmatical?
Smedical.
Schmatical.
So of course, we tried typing that freaking name in a ton of different ways.
You know what the name actually is?
Find Smerdyakov or your wife dies?
Wait, what? Peter said a completely different name than what was in the answer of the hint.
Find Smedical or your wife dies.
Find Smerdyakov or your wife dies?
Smedical.
Smerdyakov.
Smedical.
Smerdjakov.
The hint answer was wrong. It was just wrong. How do you get the answer to your own puzzle wrong? How do you do that?
We complete the stupid puzzle. We find out that one of the guests at the party is the Chameleon, and he wants to talk. Why didn't he just send a direct message instead of a complicated puzzle?
So why the encrypted note? Why not just approach me directly?
Because I love games.
Hey, so do we. Just unfortunate that we can't seem to find a good one around here.
Get this. Chameleon randomly kidnapped MJ because he believes that Peter Parker knows Spider-Man and can get in contact with him. Why would Chameleon think that Peter knows Spider-Man?
I don't know. Maybe it might have something to do with the...
Chameleon informs Peter that the Sinister Six are working together and want to confront Spider-Man. To further threaten Peter into doing his bidding, Chameleon morphs into the mutilated and tortured body of MJ to show him what is in store if he doesn't cooperate.
Oh good, violent imagery. You know, for the kids. Chameleon bids a hasty farewell and vanishes into farts.
So Spider-Man heads out to some virtual reality studio where the Sinister Six are hiding out.
Oh boy, mid-90s VR. My eyes still burn from the memories.
Spider-Man gets into the joint and finds out that all of his greatest enemies are on the top floor. So he jumps into a nearby elevator shaft and while crawling comes face to face with Doc Ock.
Trespassing on private property is a crime punishable by death, Spider-Man.
Now, look, I'm not saying I support Dr. Octopus, but he seems to be more aware that breaking and entering is a crime.
So Mr. Spidey fights Mr. Octopus in an endless elevator shaft with widely swinging CG arms just flying all over the place. It's returned to everyone's favorite terrible combat sequence.
Once you pass it, Doc Ock and the gang reveal that they're trying to ruin Spider-Man's public image, which, by now, didn't have to say that. Fake Spider-Man sealing up people in a bus that was going to explode? Clear enough.
Spider-Man goes back to the movie set and finds a reporter talking to MJ, who appears not to be kidnapped anymore, I guess. And anyway, Spidey discovers that the director of the movie, Chip Alvarez, and that one guy running for mayor were both kidnapped by the fake Spider-Man.
Spider-Man has returned to the scene of the kidnapping. Why are you back, Spider-Man? Do you plan to kidnap others?
Look, you have it all wrong. I didn't kidnap anyone.
There were eyewitnesses to the kidnapping.
By the way, during this enlightening moment, Spider-Man speaks to MJ in front of the reporter and calls out MJ by name.
What's going on, MJ?
You think a reporter might be able to figure out that maybe Spider-Man actually knows MJ and that might be a kinda issue or something?
Well, the bigger issue is that a police officer rushes up to Spider-Man to arrest him. This gives Spider-Man two options: confront the Sinister Six, the exciting superhero option, or leave the room for a few seconds, get changed, and walk right back in as Peter Parker, in front of the reporter who just heard Spider-Man speaking to MJ.
What's going on, MJ?
And knows what Spider-Man sounds like, and maybe might be able to put two and two together and figure out that Spider-Man is Peter freaking Parker.
But no, of course she doesn't realize it. Nobody in the room does. It's a room full of adults.
The next time Spider-Man shows his face, we'll be ready for him.
So now, Peter is in the room. He magically figures out that Mysterio might be the guy faking being Spider-Man. And since apparently Mysterio's illusions don't show up on camera, the security footage might help to clear his name. Camera system needs to be rewired to turn on, so we get a rewiring puzzle. By this point, the devs have checked out, because this puzzle is beyond stupid.
Honestly, there's no way you would have been able to figure this out since the only thing the fuse box says is, to customer, Starfront Pictures. In case of emergency, use company ID for manual reset.
There is no way to solve this unless you use the hint system, because the answer to this puzzle is to draw out the letters S and P on the grid. Nobody was gonna get that. They know it, and we know it. That's why the hint system just gives you the answers after a while. They completely failed. What if somehow you figured that S and P were the letters you needed to put in, but didn't know how to put them in the exact correct position? Stupid!
Peter proves that Mysterio was Spider-Man all along, and the animation and drawing quality take a nosedive.
You just can't help but look at all the awful. Every single person looks creepy.
Spider-Man goes back to the VR studio to finally confront the Sinister Six for good.
Now here we're gonna get an assortment of choices that range all over. Simple ones too, like go through the left door or right door. There's no way to know what's correct, so pay attention people, because this is gonna be important for later.
We go left, and we meet the Shocker. Shocker reveals that he wants to double-cross the Sinister Six before they can double-cross him. But the best part is right here, when Spider-Man asks Shocker what they're doing in the VR studio in the first place.
So what's this factory about? With the Sinister Six involved, it can't be just fun and games.
To the average person, the V64 virtual reality gaming units this factory is producing look like cutting-edge video games. Dr. Octopus has used all of his scientific and computer expertise to create powerful, subliminal programming that can implant messages into the minds of users. Prolonged exposure to the simulations can hypnotize users into acting out pre-programmed commands.
Did you, get all that? Because that was the first time we've heard anything about video game consoles and subliminal messages or anything like that.
This is pretty crazy, right? Throwing key information like this in out of nowhere?
But he goes on, revealing where the Sinister Six are and that Chip Alvarez, the director, was kidnapped a really long time ago, like before the game even started, and Chameleon was impersonating him the whole time. And that guy who wants to run for mayor that we still don't care about, he has been working with the Sinister Six the entire time as well.
It's like all the game's plot was put on hold up until this very moment, and a random character just dumps everything on you all together in one go. And the Shocker? You might have never seen him yet, because don't forget, if all the way back at the start of the game you didn't follow the cops, this would be the first time you're interacting with him.
So after that info dump, you get to choose. Trust the Shocker or don't.
Oh, call me crazy, but I think he's telling the truth. Let's just go ahead and trust him.
The next batch of combat scenes have you fighting Mysterio and Chameleon again with that terrible combat system.
Shocker helps by taking out Vulture.
Spider-Man confronts Doc Ock, who reveals that the real Chip Alvarez has been attached to a VR system that will erase his brain, or something, forcing Spider-Man to pick between fighting Doc Ock or saving the director and letting the octopus get away.
Well, Spider-Man would never sacrifice a life, so we pick the option to save Chip.
Spider-Man and Shocker find the machine, and Spider-Man jumps into VR by getting fused with some yellow beam or some garbage. And all of a sudden, Spider-Man is fighting a bunch of digital enemies in an endless circling void that is making me motion sick. Because this is what VR looked like in the 90s, I guess. Another terrible combat sequence.
Spider-Man eventually wins, saves Chip, tells Shocker to be a good boy, and heads back to MJ and, well, expresses regret for letting Doc Ock get away, which turns out to be a bad ending?
I'm real lost here. How is this the bad ending? Everyone was saved and the majority of the Sinister Six were captured.
Well, I guess there must be a way to capture Doc Ock that we missed. Oh, I know, let's try that last sequence again and fight Doc Ock instead of saving Chip. I bet you he was bluffing and won't really wipe his brain or whatever.
Looks like we missed a fight scene with Doc Ock. This is without a doubt the worst of all the combat sequences where Spider-Man is jumping around the screen like a jackrabbit. Most of the other scenes usually had Spidey sense kick in at least to give you a brief hint as to where you're supposed to avoid attacks. Not this one though, you're on your own, staring at a poorly drawn and badly animated Doc Ock.
Oh, gotta love that his arms were CG in the elevator, which kinda looked cool, but in the final boss fight they just give up and resort to MS Paint images being animated.
One incredibly long, hard, and insultingly bad combat scene later, this happens.
You're too late. Dr. Octopus's program has destroyed Alvarez's mind.
No, there has to be a way.
He's gone. It's not your fault.
I should have let Dr. Octopus go. If I had, I could have saved Alvarez.
And Dr. Octopus could have killed innocent people if you hadn't stopped him.
My decision has cost this man his life.
And it probably saved the lives of millions. Think about what would have happened if Octopus would have succeeded.
Did it just cut to credits? No MJ scene? Wait, is this worse than the bad ending we already got?
I mean, Chip's brain is fried, so Spider-Man is obviously upset, but Shocker was consoling Spider-Man? He's a criminal, right? Why would he care about how Spider-Man, his nemesis, feels?
Righty, restart it from the top. Let's go through the right door this time.
The mayor guy is there, and at this point we know he's a liar, so we don't trust him. We select the don't trust him button, and bam! The Sinister Six pour out of a door and beat the crap out of Spider-Man and throw him into a dumpster across the street. Hey, across.
This ending has Peter talking to MJ on the couch, but he seems strangely okay for a guy who just got seriously injured. But this is probably the worst possible ending you can get in the game because Spider-Man totally loses.
So, you want to know how you get the good ending?
Meet the Shocker. Let him reveal the truth. Instead of trusting the guy who's telling the truth, you attack him.
This next part broke the brains.
In this scenario, Shocker is subdued. We walk into the next room to confront the rest of the Sinister Six, but they've been pre-captured in some sort of bizarre bubble force field. The only force field we've seen in this game was used by Shocker. Remember the door at the bank?
This begs the question, how did Shocker use a force field while subdued?
Why didn't he use a force field on the Six when he's trying to help Spider-Man in the other version of this scene?
Nobody knows!
But now you can rush over to Chip and save him without his brain getting zapped.
But even with this ending, Spider-Man still let Shocker go afterwards because he realized that Shocker was telling the truth all along. So as a sign of good faith, he frees him. By the way, Shocker still took hostages, still robbed a bank, but to Spider-Man, I guess that's not a big deal.
And now we finally see the good ending. MJ and Peter are on that same darn couch again, where...
You need to focus your attention on something else. Like me.
This part of the superhero biz ain't so bad.
Ooh, steamy.
Yeah, that seems to be how they ended it. Game for kids, everyone.
This game has got to be the worst of the licensed Spider-Man games. One that largely flew under the radar by most, and that was probably a good thing.
The gameplay is brutal. The puzzles aren't puzzling. The writing is bland. The story doesn't click. But, you know, the worst of it? The animations. They seem to be lower quality than what was the norm for 1996. Don't forget, this is the same year that Broken Sword came out, with animations that looked like this.
By comparison, it almost looks like the animators were forced to animate against their will.
Well, about that, yeah. In the credits, we found a secret message that might clue us in as to what happened.
No animals were harmed during the taping of this game. However, the animators incurred severe injuries at various times. But hey, that's what you get. It's just bad.